Raiden Miller, a renowned chef whose reputation was built on disciplined precision and masterful control, stared down at the vulgar intrusion on his state-of-the-art smartphone. It wasn't a malicious online critique of his multi-star restaurant. It was a text message, a digital declaration of war, sent via a secure messaging app from his wife Alara's young culinary apprentice. The message was offensively direct, laced with the cocky confidence of a man who believed he held an insurmountable advantage. "You've been cooked, old man. A rare dish like hers wasted on your tired, low-heat setting. Remember this. The spouse left on the sidelines is just the leftover." Raiden's initial shock was instantly replaced by a glacial calm. He tracked down his wife, Alara, who was reviewing supplier invoices in their home office. He silently placed the phone on her desk, the screen displaying the inflammatory text. Alara read it, and her reaction was not one of shared outrage, but of condescending amusement. She let out a short, dismissive laugh, a sound brittle enough to shatter. "Oh, that's just Jude. He's young, Raiden. Uncouth. He simply doesn't understand the professional power dynamics yet. You're taking a prank too seriously, and frankly, you've become too demanding of my time lately." Too demanding? The sheer audacity of her deflection, her immediate reflexive attempt to invert the blame and point to his character flaws, was a bitter, sickening flavor. Raiden's expression became one of absolute frigidity, a man who had suddenly stepped into a deep freeze. He said nothing, simply maintaining his silent, unwavering focus on her. Alara mistook his silence for weakness, for the familiar husbandly avoidance of conflict she had come to rely on. She assumed he was giving her the cold shoulder, too afraid or too dignified to engage in a messy confrontation. She couldn't have known that his stillness masked the most profound plan of revenge. He was about to systematically dismantle the most critical elements of her success, the very thing she arrogantly called her culinary miracle. The moment he arrived unannounced at her exclusive high-stakes client meeting, which was, in reality, a private, lavish dinner with her apprentice Jude, she would finally be forced to face the consequence of her own hubris. She was convinced she was the strategic victor, leaving Raiden as the pathetic casualty of her new ambition. She was tragically unaware that her path of reckless choices was about to trigger the total collapse of everything she cherished. The taste of deception. Jude is merely a talented, overly enthusiastic student who sees me as his gateway to the top. He lacks polish, true, but he doesn't have your long-term experience, Raiden. Why are you, a celebrated chef, letting yourself get so worked up over an impulsive boy's text? Alara asked, her voice laced with the patronizing tone she often used with subordinates. Her eyes were full of a practiced disappointment, suggesting that the problem lay entirely with Raiden's insecurity, not her apprentice's impropriety. You were young and ambitious once, too. You were just as intense in the kitchen. How can you not show a little mentorship and empathy for a struggling young talent? When Raiden had first shown her the text, Alara had momentarily lost her professional veneer. Raiden saw the flash of pure, uncontrolled anger at Jude for his idiotic public declaration of ownership, but years spent maneuvering through the cutthroat world of fine dining had equipped her with a ruthless ability to regain composure. Within moments, she had parried his attack and launched a counter-narrative, focusing on what she perceived as Raiden's rigidity and lack of generosity. Alara, this is not a matter of age or experience. This is about basic integrity. It is a fundamental question of respect for our commitment. You excuse him by saying he's young, but he's a working adult. An adult knows the consequences of their actions, and they must be held accountable for them. Raiden's tone was controlled, his words measured and sharp, like slicing with a newly honed Japanese knife. So, no, I do not accept the excuses of him being a rookie, immature, or simply reckless. He paused, and as expected, he caught the rapid, evasive shift in her eyes. But in the next second, she snapped into action, grabbing his phone and slamming it onto the floor. Her breath hitched, and her shoulders began to tremble, constructing a perfect picture of a woman driven to tears by her husband's cruelty. What is this aggressive mood? You are clearly seeking a fight. You are looking for an escape, because you no longer care about me, she cried. Alara, you know that is false. How could I not care? He picked up the phone. The screen was spiderwebbed with cracks, the high-end case shattered. The data was likely intact, but the evidence was unusable in the short term. He let out a long, weary sigh, a sound of defeat, not submission. It is because I love you that I brought this directly to you. Our whole life, our identity, is the partnership of Miller and Company. The restaurant we forged together. We have been married for 8 years, a decade together. And now some opportunistic amateur calls me the leftover and tells me to step aside. Do you truly believe that pretending this didn't happen is the action of a loving partner? Hearing him bring up the restaurant, their pride, their financial fortress, Alara's expression momentarily froze. A brief shadow of guilt passed over her face, but the excitement of her new obsession quickly overcame her better judgment. Her gaze turned cold and calculating, and she puffed up with the manufactured indignation of a culinary queen defending her territory. If you truly loved me, you would trust my professional judgment. You would allow me to cultivate talent without your overbearing suspicion. I used to find your stability so romantic, but now you're just paternalistic. Your life is a repetitive menu, and all you do is try to limit my scope. I feel stifled and controlled when I'm with you. She refuted his logic with exaggerated emotional theatrics. It was like trying to appeal to reason with a brick wall. Raiden made one final clinical attempt at communication. It is inherent to feel that the initial intensity dulls after a long time. But I hope you understand that new passion, like a new trend, always fades. Responsibility and commitment do not— I know what you are about to say, Alara interrupted, her voice mocking and overdramatized as she finished his sentence for him. She scoffed. We are in the era of innovation. Can you please stop trying to lecture me with your tired 1950s relationship platitudes? You just keep repeating the same stale lines. Innovation is about creating a better dish with your established partner, Alara. It is not about recycling tired mistakes with a new apprentice, Raiden responded, his patience finally dissolving. Alara fluttered her eyelashes with open impatience. Raiden finally closed his mouth. There was no benefit in continuing. She had utterly refused to engage in an honest discussion, choosing instead to hide behind a wall of self-justification. He would not waste another moment of his life on it. Sensing the shift in his demeanor, the quiet surrender she sought, Alara quickly attempted to smooth things over. I know you care about me, Raiden. I simply despise it when you act like such a dinosaur. Jude is just my work confidant, a little brother in the kitchen, that is all. There is absolutely nothing improper occurring. That message was an obvious joke. I will correct him later. But you, a man of your stature, acting jealous over a boy? Are you even a man anymore? Raiden simply offered his cold smile and maintained his silence. Alara, convinced she had decisively won the exchange, let out a long sigh of relief. She quickly refreshed her makeup, then announced with a definitive, challenging tilt of her chin. All right, I'm not spending any more energy on this. Jude has a massive client tasting this evening that I am personally overseeing, and we have a late dinner scheduled. You are on your own. This time, Raiden was perfectly calm and collected. No desperate tears, no dramatic scene, exactly what she had wanted. He simply watched her walk away, letting her stride out the door like a triumphant victor, the lock engaging behind her. Alara was blissfully unaware that her perceived victory was merely the formal expiration of her final reprieve. The next time their paths crossed, the foundation of her life, her miracle, would be in the process of being irrevocably reclaimed by him, and she would finally comprehend the excruciating meaning of absolute regret. Chapter 2. The Indispensable Ingredient. Alara and I were far from the typical romantic story, yet our histories were profoundly woven together since the dramatic collapse of her life when she was 17. At that age, she was a fractured mess, a talented young girl abandoned in the wreckage of her family's public expensive divorce. Her father, a titan of the culinary world, had become embroiled in a series of disastrous scandals, and the subsequent split left Alara feeling like an unwanted heirloom, perpetually relocated between her parents' new, polished, and indifferent families. The profound sense of isolation and betrayal from those years left her deeply vulnerable, yet fiercely ambitious for absolute control and security. I came into her life as a beacon of stable structure. I mentored her not just in cooking, but in the rigorous discipline required to navigate the high-end industry. From high school through her specialized culinary college program, I was her constant. During her most turbulent periods, I didn't just support her. I rebuilt her focus, breaking down complex business models, haute cuisine techniques, and the psychological demands of the kitchen until she had an intellectual mastery of them. In college, her intense, sensitive nature made her an easy target for the competitive, often brutal environment of a professional kitchen. I was the one who taught her how to build a professional carapace, how to turn her sensitivity into acute observation, and how to forge necessary alliances. She didn't just make friends, she established a functional network, a network that I subtly facilitated. When she decided to launch her own luxury catering and consultation firm, Miller and Company, the business she insisted on co-naming, I was her silent partner and chief architect. I funneled the seed capital, provided the crucial high society connections from my older, established network, designed the logistics flow, and created the proprietary operational software that gave her a massive, unadvertised competitive edge. I sacrificed my own upward mobility as a culinary architect to ensure her project's flawless execution. It is no hyperbole to state that my blueprint, my resources, and my sheer effort were the invisible foundation of her entire professional existence. Time and again, when we were alone, her head resting on my shoulder, she would confess, "Raiden, I genuinely don't know how I would have achieved any of this without you. You are my absolute anchor, the stabilizing agent in every recipe. You turned my chaotic life into a structured, elegant platform." I always accepted her affection, determined to be the immovable pillar she desperately craved. Will you always be the steadfast, my only constant? Will you remain the miracle in my life, always ready to absorb my professional stress and doubts? Her gaze, usually so sharp in the kitchen, would become soft, fixed on me with hopeful certainty. I would always draw her closer, affirming the promise. I will always protect this partnership and the success we've built, but I never let the promise go unqualified. With a light, almost teasing smile, I would add, "But remember, Elara, if you ever fundamentally undermine the structure, even a miracle can be withdrawn." It was a term of endearment that carried a steel core. I give you 3 chances to ruin the shared success. After the third, poof, the miracle ingredient is extracted and the whole dish collapses. Elara would playfully hit my chest. "You are so dramatic. Who ends a perfect partnership over 3 minor mistakes? You are too strict." My silence was my answer. And she understood. "Fine, I know. With you, I have everything I need. That won't even happen once." She was utterly convinced of her own fidelity to the success we shared. She couldn't have foreseen the speed with which her 3 chances would be utterly exhausted. Chapter 3. The 3 fault lines. The first fault line appeared so gradually that it was less a seismic event and more a slow, corrosive burn. I was immersed in a high-security consulting project, and Elara was expanding her firm. Our lives were parallel, allowing the slow development of an emotional drought. One evening, Elara mentioned it casually. "We took on a brilliant new apprentice, Raiden Jude. He is aggressively talented, but so fiercely guarded, so terrified of failure. It reminds me perfectly of myself at his age. I feel a deep, almost maternal obligation to mentor him." I noted the strange, possessive intensity in her description. I didn't comment, merely listened. She then awkwardly tried to shift the conversation to my work, and I obliged, telling her about the complexities of integrating AI into large-scale kitchen management systems. As usual, she yawned, finding the technical details tedious. I learned my lesson and stopped sharing those parts of my life. The true nature of her mentorship was revealed when I discovered a post she made on a niche industry forum using an anonymous account I had once set up for her. Title: "Help! I think I'm falling for my much younger, talented apprentice." Throwaway profile. The post detailed her professional reliance on me versus the electric, dangerous energy of Jude. She confessed to having a stable, supportive, genius husband who was the architect of her career, admitting she would never divorce him for financial reasons. But she then launched into a gushing, intimate description of Jude, his intuitive palate, his quiet intensity, the way he looks at me like I am the center of his world. He has confessed his obsession with me, too, and I am completely overwhelmed. I am married, but this connection feels like a professional necessity that has bled into something vital. What should I prioritize, stability or this consuming, essential new fire? She'd carefully upvoted every comment encouraging her to pursue happiness and not be held back by an old-fashioned contract. The irony was that she had forgotten I was the digital architect of her entire life, including that anonymous account. That night, I displayed the page on our smart screen. I watched her perfectly composed facade disintegrate into a torrent of hysterical tears and desperate self-abasement. I maintained an unnerving composure, simply speaking the contract terms. To keep the home fires burning steadily, you must extinguish all flirtations with kindling. You wanted a peaceful home, not a constant kitchen fire alarm, correct? She fell to her knees, pleading. Raiden, I promise you, I was just fantasizing. None of that is real. I was testing the water. It means nothing. You have to believe me. I helped her up, my touch devoid of warmth. I bring this up now because I don't want a single careless mistake to become an irrevocable failure. You have just used your first chance. Confusion flickered in her eyes, quickly followed by deeper terror. I know I was wrong. I will cut all ties, I swear. A miracle is resilient, Ilara, but it is not immortal. Be cautious how you treat it. My words were deliberately cryptic. I turned to my work, leaving her to grapple with the terror of her near miss. If you can't fire him, your promises are merely empty calories. The threat worked for a time. Ilara deleted the accounts and stopped mentioning Jude. But less than a month later, she squandered her second chance. She was absent without notification, ignoring my calls. I proceeded with my evening. Very late, Jude appeared at our doorstep, half carrying a deeply intoxicated Ilara. It was then I saw the raw, entitled arrogance in his eyes, the true nature of the sensitive artist she had taken under her wing. You must be the husband, Jude sneered, stabilizing Ilara against the doorframe. I need to call you out on this. Ilara works beyond exhaustion every day. Can you not pay her even minimal attention? She drank herself into a stupor, and I was the one who had to ensure her safety. This kind of checked-out partnership is a sign of a fundamental failure. I have no respect for your lack of attention. He wanted to say more, but he visibly recoiled from the absolute frozen indifference in my gaze. He quickly retreated, leaving her to me. It was immediately clear that Ilara had not maintained any distance. She had instead allowed him to become her emotional crutch. He's so vulnerable in this cold city, Raiden, she started to explain when she was coherent. My expression was perfectly neutral, the calm before the storm. It was enough to silence her apology. After a long, tense moment, she finally crumbled into fresh sobs. I was afraid you would be angry. Please forgive me this one time. I will never keep secrets again. This is your second chance. My voice was barely a whisper, empty of mockery. She had always demanded emotional stability, and I was giving her precisely that. But why did my perfect placidity fail to keep her from seeking chaos? Was it just human nature to yearn for the drama that comes with the pursuit of desire? Now, with the boastful text and the secret dinner plan, the third chance was extinguished. Chapter 4. The Showstopper. That night. Go, Jude! That presentation was flawless! Oh my god, Ilara and Jude, you guys have the best chemistry. You should launch a concept together. When I smoothly pushed open the door to the exclusive private dining room, a venue I recognized as one only bookable through my own network connections. Ilara and her management team were deep into a lavish celebration. The air was thick with the rich scent of expensive wine and the sickly perfume of professional flattery. They were too loud, too self-congratulatory to notice the sudden chill in the room. Ilara, whose cheeks were flushed a deep red from the alcohol and the high-octane attention, had her arm linked intimately with Jude's. She threw back her head in a gesture of triumphant abandon and finished a glass of vintage Sauternes. The cheers from the room were deafening. She had only mentioned a late client dinner. She had neglected to mention the CO-dependent public display. When she lowered the glass, she finally looked up and saw me standing in the doorway. For a brief, terrifying moment, her face was a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. Raiden, what are you doing here? Her employees froze. The celebratory noise died instantly. Only Jude retained a measure of his defiant posture. Hey man, it's a celebratory industry event. Ilara is a generous boss. I'm sure you're cool with us blowing off some steam, right? He challenged, his tone dripping with fake geniality. This time, I didn't smile. I looked at Jude as if he were already a piece of spoiled meat to be discarded. I am cool with the event, but I must correct you. I am not a cool guy you are about to discover. Exactly what kind of man I am, you parasitic drain on her professional energy. What did you call me? Jude sputtered, his facade cracking. He instinctively pressed himself closer to Ilara, adopting his familiar petulant tone. Ilara, your husband is trying to humiliate me. He is verbally assaulting your apprentice. The appeal of his infantile behavior was lost on me, but it was Alara's starting pistol. Her rage instantly exploded. She stormed toward me in her heels, her voice raw. How dare you speak to Jude that way? I told you I wasn't coming home because Jude secured an enormous new catering contract. We are celebrating his achievement. That shot was a simple toast to his success. Do you have any concept of how much effort Jude put in? With one hateful comment, you dismiss all his hard work and insult my business decisions. Why are you so poisonous? Under normal circumstances, I would have quietly withdrawn. But the contract was breached. The need for pretense was over. The time for the unvarnished, ugly truth was now. I looked into her wild, desperate eyes and let out a single sharp laugh that held no humor. Perfect. This is absolutely perfect. You, the owner of a firm, who works yourself into the ground to maintain an image of success, also you can transfer your accomplishments onto your new obsession? Just to make this utterly replaceable man look competent, and you have to finance a party to inflate his ego? I stepped closer, my voice a sudden cold whisper that cut through the silence. You call yourself his mentor. No, you are his servant. You are worse than a lackey. He is a parasite, and you are the pathetic supplicant rewarding his attention. The truth, when delivered with surgical cruelty, often has the most immediate effect. Alara's face contorted, anger, then shock, then frantic denial, culminating in a raw emotional frenzy. She looked absurd, like a chef who had ruined the entire banquet. My mouth curled into a genuine yet thoroughly chilling smile. That final, contemptuous smile was her undoing. Alara lunged, her hands swinging toward my face. Shut up! I will not allow you to destroy Jude like this! Crack! Her slap never connected. I seized her wrist in a vice-like grip and, with the clinical detachment of a judge delivering a sentence, delivered my own open-handed blow across her cheek. The room fell into an echoing, stunned silence. Her team members dropped their wine glasses. The defiance in Jude's face evaporated, replaced by wide-eyed panic. Alara stood frozen for a moment before letting out a high-pitched, piercing scream. You struck me! You actually struck me! That is it! I am leaving you! I am filing for divorce immediately! I scoffed. You didn't hesitate to attack the husband who built your entire career, all for a disposable apprentice. Look at you now. The minute you achieved success, you became utterly spoiled and rotten. It's repulsive, but don't trouble yourself with the paperwork. Your miracle, I have already initiated its retrieval. My tone was almost joyous. I only came to deliver the final notice. As for divorce, it's unnecessary. Enjoy the evening. My sudden, unhinged laughter, a sound so alien to my usual composed nature, reverberated through the dining room, utterly shattering my years-long image of stability. Jude, terrified, had already retreated behind a pillar. Her employees who had cheered on her emotional betrayal now couldn't meet my eyes. How predictable. Farewell, and may your future be exactly what you deserve. I turned and walked toward the exit, giving a small theatrical wave. Alara's carefully planned romantic showcase was in ruins. You monster! You will pay for this! I will destroy you! Alara's screams were deafening behind me, yet to my ears, they were the sweet music of a contract being fulfilled. She was still fixated on the physical pain, completely oblivious that without her miracle, every single pillar of her life was about to crumble. And I, her silent observer, would have the best seat in the house. Chapter 5. The Shattering of the Miracle. Reclamation initiated. Honestly, I was slightly surprised Alara made it back to the penthouse before dawn. One decisive physical interaction, and it had completely derailed her careful plan to deepen her connection with Jude. Perhaps even finalize the betrayal. I could sense her hesitating outside the security door, viewing our shared home as a humiliating concession, a shameful act of retreat. Yet, necessity won. She finally unlocked the door and stumbled in, smelling heavily of wine and stale party air. She even attempted a soft, conciliatory tone, a final pathetic attempt at appeasement. Raiden, you completely misjudged the situation tonight. I see Jude strictly as a younger colleague. He's struggling with so many career hurdles he can't clear, just like I was years ago. I've told you, mentoring him is like mentoring an earlier version of myself. Honey, are you here? Are you home? How utterly pathetic. Alara was incapable of realizing that the core of our conflict was not Jude's nature, but the termination of our contract. She was blind to the true issue. Even now, with me sitting perfectly still on the lounge sofa, sipping a vintage Bordeaux right in front of her, she remained completely oblivious, unable to perceive my existence. "Honey, where are you? Raiden?" After searching the living areas, Alara's fear curdled into resentment. She muttered through clenched teeth, "You bastard. Playing the silent withdrawal game? Are you a grown man acting like a spoiled child, hiding to make me worry? I won't give you the satisfaction. Come out if you want, or go sleep in one of your cold, sterile industrial kitchens for all I care." Her voice trembled with bottled fury and gathering tears. Finally, driven by exhaustion and her foul mood, she went straight to the master bedroom and collapsed onto the bed, falling into a deep, alcohol-induced slumber. It was a pity I missed her discovery of the fact that my number and contact information were completely gone from her phone, but no matter. Tomorrow's performance would be far more spectacular. The reclamation of the miracle was a subtle, gradual process, rewinding time and rewriting history step by calculated step. Each step promised a thrill. As the clock struck midnight, an invisible tremor rippled through the air. Alara, curled up in a fitful sleep, would never know the true cost of her awakening. Reclamation. Day 1. The look of utter bewilderment on Alara's face when she woke up from her hangover and gazed around was so exquisitely comical, I almost laughed aloud. "What? Where am I?" The layout was identical to our penthouse, but the decor was alien. Cheap synthetic materials, different wall colors, unfamiliar furniture. This was no longer her home. Alara's first instinct was to check her body for any unwelcome marks. She noticed a few light bruises from the chaotic night before, and looked furious for a second, then seemed to remember they were from her own collapse, not from anyone else, and she sighed in relief. But her relief was immediately replaced by a surge of consuming terror. Her face turned ashen. "This can't be right. I came home last night. How did my penthouse transform into this sterile rental?" Just as she was about to investigate further, the sound of a key in the lock echoed through the apartment. An elderly woman, supported by a middle-aged daughter, entered with 2 burly young men, their faces grim with annoyance. "Who are you? What is a stranger doing in my house? This is breaking and entering. I will call the police," the older woman cried out. "I'm breaking the law?" Alara was dumbfounded. "This is my home. How can I be trespassing in my own home?" The elderly woman was agitated, but her daughter was cold and focused. "Ma'am, our security system has video footage of you entering our residence without permission last night. If you don't vacate immediately, we will involve law enforcement." Hearing this, Alara exploded, perhaps feeling the lingering confidence of her former status, but the family's bodyguards immediately stepped forward, their sheer presence deflating her bravado and silencing the sharp legal arguments she might have otherwise made. Then, to her mounting horror, the women produced the deed and other property documents from a drawer. The proof was irrefutable. This elegant, fully paid-for penthouse was not hers. Had the owners not seen that she was a disheveled but otherwise harmless young woman, they might have pursued legal action. Instead, they simply expelled her. Alara was thrown out onto the street, wandering in a daze until she finally arrived at the offices of Miller and Company there. She was greeted by the usual fawning of her staff. Jude had even prepared her preferred artisanal coffee and rushed to attend to her the moment she walked in. "Morning, Alara. You look rough. You really need to prioritize your rest. Your husband is so fortunate to have a woman like you, yet he clearly doesn't appreciate it." He shot her a quick, knowing, seductive glance. On any other day, Alara would have basked in her young protege's solicitous attention. But she was still reeling from the shock of losing her home. Jude's advances were met with a blank stare. A flicker of annoyance crossed his face before he turned back to the coffee machine. He was more opportunistic than he let on. I watched Alara's panic and confusion with detached amusement, the look of sheer, bone-deep terror as she desperately scrolled through her phone for any trace of our combined property was deliciously ironic. We had a traditional financial arrangement. I had provided the enormous down payment and covered the majority of the monthly mortgage through a complex trust fund. That was how we afforded our lifestyle. As the miracle was systematically erased, how could she possibly have afforded a place of that caliber? The utter despair on her face was so entertaining, I couldn't help but look forward to the next midnight strike, when she would face an even greater loss? What new level of hysteria would she descend into? I couldn't wait to find out. Chapter 6, The Unraveling Foundation, Reclamation, Day 2. Alara never found any proof of ownership on her phone. Instead, she discovered two terrifying facts about her current reality. What was lost was me. Every single trace of my existence, photos, messages, financial records, had vanished. I wondered if the dazed look in her eyes was the sudden, chilling memory of my final, cold goodbye. It was a beautiful expression, a sweet sight for me. What was gained was her authentic address, a small, functional rental studio in a less desirable area of the city. It matched her actual financial situation, was practical for a quick commute, and even the photos on her phone reflected the true aesthetic of her bank balance. But she was not happy about this gain. In fact, she broke down in her glass-walled office, her face slick with tears, screaming at the empty air. "Raiden, where are you? What is happening? Where did you go? Where is our home?" I watched her collapse. My heart was a placid lake. Even as her subordinates stared with morbid curiosity through the glass, she, a woman who prized her image above all else, didn't seem to care. Today was a total loss. Even Jude, who repeatedly attempted to enter her office to get close, to accidentally brush against her, was shooed away by her violent mood swings. Such a drama queen. "An old wreck," the apprentice muttered under his breath after closing the door. "If she wasn't the boss, I wouldn't give her the time of day." His whisper did not escape my notice. I wonder how Alara will feel when she realizes she lost everything for a creature like this. A deep, chilling smile crossed my face as I anticipated the coming night and the further unspooling of her miracle. Reclamation. Day 3. I could not understand Alara's decision-making process. She knew where she was living now, so why did she wander around a low-end dive bar all night drinking cheap liquor? I recalled her once sharing articles with captions like, "The midnight bar is the only honest sanctuary. A cozy home is a cage of domestic crisis." I had always assumed she was being facetious. I never imagined that after such a catastrophic 2 days, she would be too terrified to face reality in her rental, and too proud to seek help from the friends who always encouraged her to trade up. She chose the bar instead. A poor choice. To ensure the drama continued, I subtly diverted 3 groups of young predators who saw her as easy prey, allowing her to make it to the morning unscathed. But when she arrived, hungover and desperate, at the headquarters of her beloved Miller and Company, the catering firm she had poured her soul into, she froze before even reaching the entrance. The building was the same. The floor and suite number were the same. But the polished, expensive brass plaque for Miller and Company had been replaced with one reading, Terra Verde Food Consultancy. My law firm. Who are you people? Why are you in my office? Get your manager out here. This is illegal occupation. I will sue you personally. Terror and desperation drove Alara into a frantic fit. The young woman at the front desk kindly tried to explain that the office had always been Terra Verde, and that a Miller and Company had never existed in that location. "You are lying! Who do you think you are? Get your boss to speak to me!" Alara became utterly hysterical, slapping the receptionist across the face in a fit of delusion. A senior consultant, witnessing the injustice, immediately called the police. Soon, officers arrived and took Alara, the source of the disturbance, into custody. "This is my firm. Let go of me. They are the intruders. You should be arresting them." Jude, where are you? Get out here and explain this." It was truly laughable that she was still clinging to her apprentice as a savior. I watched her futile struggle. I watched as the police verified and dismissed every frantic piece of evidence she provided. I watched as she broke down into heaving, heartbroken sobs. Finally, to avoid being detained overnight, she meekly paid the citation, signed the documents, and was released as twilight began to fall. "Ma'am, you need to be realistic. If you are overworked, you must rest. Don't let these fantasies destroy your life," the kind, elderly officer advised her. He had already verified her current employment status. Alara Miller was not the owner and head chef of Miller and Company. She was merely a newly hired junior associate chef at a high-volume corporate canteen service. and the official warning for her unexcused absence had been delivered by an executive chef named Jude. Alara ignored the officer's words. The moment she was outside the precinct, she called Jude, demanding to know what he had done to her company. The conversation immediately devolved into a furious, venomous shouting match. "Jude, what is your issue? What do you mean? An old hag like you should know your place. Where is your respect?" Jude's sneer was audible even through the phone line. "You, a washed-up loser who barely passed her final practical exam, have the nerve to lecture me about manners. Who do you think you are? I'm busy entertaining the managing director, Mr. Henderson, at a client dinner. I don't have time for your insane drama." And he said, "If you miss another shift, you are terminated." He hung up. Alara was shaking with pure, sick fury. The Jude on the phone was nothing like the gentle, needy artist she thought she knew. He was a ruthless, two-faced social climber. She tried to call back to scream at him, only to find he had blocked her number. It was only then that a deep, chilling fear began to set in. Yesterday, she lost her home. Today, she lost her company, her status, and her power. What would she lose next? Alara couldn't bear the thought. Tonight, she was smarter. No more bars. She went straight to her best friend Celia's house to beg for a plan, a safe haven, and I followed, a silent, delighted observer. As the miracle unraveled, wasn't it perfectly logical for her to lose her company? That firm was a joint effort. I provided the capital, the connections, the tech, the entire structural framework that allowed her to start her own business. Without me, her foundation was instantly halved. Of course, she would fall from owner to low-level employee. Watching the defeated slump of her shoulders, the utter despair in her eyes, only made me more eager to see how completely she would shatter when the next stage of reclamation arrived. Chapter 7. The Bitter Truth. Reclamation. Day 4. Alara left her friend Celia's apartment early the next morning. Her face was a mask of grim, defeated exhaustion. Celia's attitude towards her had taken a catastrophic turn. The fawning and constant encouragement were gone, replaced by unconcealed biting impatience. Alara finally snapped. "Celia, why are you being so cruel to me? You used to say I was the most successful, independent woman you knew, that I was your role model. You said Raiden didn't even deserve me." Pushed to the edge by Alara's accusations, Celia dropped all pretense. "Alara, take a good look at your life. Who the hell are you that? I should be kissing your ass. If you were really running your own firm, I would humor you as a useful contact. But you know exactly what you are, don't you?" As Alara stared in profound shock, Celia went in for the kill. "You flunked so many key culinary modules, you barely scraped by with a basic associate degree. You're working catering events at a corporate cafeteria. There's no shame in working hard, but can you please be realistic? You spend all day living in a fantasy world about owning a restaurant and having a perfect husband, and you try to act superior to me. Stop dreaming. Don't ever call me again." Slam. The door shut, leaving Alara utterly bewildered. I could see she couldn't accept the fact that she had never truly graduated from the top tier of her program. It couldn't be helped. The reclamation of the miracle had now reached her college years. I remembered how stressed and volatile she had been. Without my unwavering structural support, she hadn't been able to handle the pressure, and her top-tier culinary education had ended in a disastrous demotion. To desperately prove to herself that she was a real chef, she rushed to the corporate canteen office, only to be denied entry. She didn't have a keycard. A security guard, seeing her distraught and disheveled state, quickly escorted her away. She spent the entire day wandering in a daze. As the clock struck midnight once more, another layer of the miracle was stripped away. Reclamation. Day 5. The miracle of her successful functional network was erased. Alara was now a complete loner, her few remaining contacts hostile and dismissive. Reclamation. Day 6. The miracle of our initial companionship was erased. When Alara woke up again, she was sleeping on a worn public park bench. The memory on her cheap, battered phone was a testament to a broken life that had never had any stability. Finally, she broke completely. "Raiden, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I know you are doing this. I will never, ever be unfaithful again. Just give me this one last chance." She was laughing and weeping hysterically, running wildly through the downtown park. Eventually, a worried bystander called the authorities, and she was taken away for psychiatric evaluation. After the 5th day, I stopped following Alara directly. I used the time to finalize a few necessary global adjustments and settle old scores. When I finally sought her out again, she was in a private psychiatric ward, her eyes vacant. At times, she would weep uncontrollably. At others, she would snarl and lash out at the nurses. I didn't expect that even in her completely shattered state, she would still register my presence. It wasn't logical. But then again, my very existence defied logic. Raiden, I knew you couldn't stay away. I'm sorry. I see it all now. Seeing me, Alara regained a moment of chilling clarity. She was lightly restrained to the bed, her expression tragic, tears streaming down her face. It was Jude, that pathetic user. He manipulated me. I saw it afterward. He's not a sensitive artist. He's a calculating climber. You were right all along. I was too stupid to see the truth because I was blinded by the attention. But you must know nothing physical ever happened between us. I never crossed that final line. When I remained silent, she continued her frantic confession. And Celia and the others. I see them for who they are now. They were just jealous of my life, poisoning my mind against you. I cut them off. All that online nonsense. I was confused for a moment, swept up in the glamour. I was lost. I watched her, my face a mask of cold neutrality. Even now, she was blaming everyone else. Jude, Celia, the system, never looking at her own insatiable desire. You came to see me, so that must mean you think my punishment is enough, that you're willing to forgive me, right? I swear, if you give me one more chance, I will be the perfect, devoted partner to you. Seeing the desperate spark of hope in her eyes, I finally smiled, a true, frigid smile straight from the heart. With a wave of my hand, a shimmering, ethereal screen of light appeared between us. On it, an image from a cold, distant past began to play. A younger, terrified Alara was curled into a ball in a dusty pantry closet, wiping away tears. Once a cherished daughter, she was now a discarded, pitiful child, hiding from the terrifying sounds of shouting and shattering objects outside. The little girl finally clasped her hands together and prayed through her sobs. If there is truly a God, can you hear Alara's prayer? A shooting star streaked across the dark pantry ceiling, and a mysterious, deep, non-human voice echoed in the little girl's ear. Your soul is pure. I can answer your plea. The little girl's head shot up. Really? You can grant my wish? Can you make Mommy and Daddy stop fighting and love me again? Souls that are corrupted beyond repair cannot be reversed. Their path is set. What? You're a god. How can there be something you can't do? I am a demon, little one, not a god. The little girl froze, trembling. But the mysterious entity who called itself a demon seemed less frightening than the chaos outside. After a long silence, the little girl finally made her wish. Mr. Demon, can you give me a companion? I am so lonely. Mommy and Daddy don't want me, and I don't have any friends. I want a partner who will grow up with me and protect me my whole life. Her voice grew clearer, reciting ideals she'd seen in movies. I want a partner who will never lose his temper, who will always guide me when I'm wrong, who won't be like my dad. I hope he'll be patient, care about my feelings, and give me the support I need. I don't need a super rich life. I just want someone to be steadily there so we can be happy and not lonely anymore. She timidly added, Mr. Demon, is that too much to ask? The demonic voice replied, without hesitation. Your desire is acknowledged. Your wish will be granted. A miracle will be bestowed upon you. But remember, the contract of a miracle is binding on both parties. After 3 violations, the miracle will disappear completely. The voice faded, and the little girl mumbled to herself, 3 times? It won't even be 1 time. If I have a partner that good, I would never break the contract. She looked around, shrugged off the strange vision, and the scene ended. I dismissed the shimmering screen of light. Alara, her face streaked with fresh tears and drool, stared at me with a look of raw primal terror. You're my expression was neutral, neither pitying nor scornful. 3 chances, no more, no less. Your regrets and your excuses mean nothing to the terms of the contract. Alara was stunned, then burst into mad, hysterical laughter. Ha 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 ha! A miracle? What kind of miracle are you? You're just a devil. I got into college on my own. I got my degree on my own. What does that have to do with you? Even Miller and Company. I built that. Did you help? Yes, but at most it was only half. her eyes filled with a crazed, venomous hatred. Yes, I saw the world and my priorities shifted. I got tired of the quiet life and craved excitement. So what? Is it a crime to want a better life? If you couldn't give me the life I wanted, you should have just left. What right do you have to claim all my hard work was part of your stupid miracle and take it all away? I shook my head, stating a simple, factual truth. I only removed my own existence, Alara. You were standing on a foundation that was never truly yours alone. So of course you fell. I didn't need to do anything else. As for her accusing me of taking her credit, I offered one last lesson, one final guidance. Just like the family you can't bear to speak of, your current life collapsed because of insatiable greed and an absolute lack of mutual respect. I never said your efforts were worthless. On the contrary, the miracle was the result of our combined, tireless efforts. It couldn't exist without both of us. Your wandering eye, your betrayal, your indulgence of that apprentice, they were all symptoms of your inflated ego and your complete disregard for your partner's contributions. The miracle, which required both of us, collapsed. You lost our shared success, and I lost the purpose for which I came into existence. When you weigh the losses, who do you think suffered more? You're mad, don't scare me. You're my husband, you have always been. There is no such thing as your existence being removed. This time, I couldn't help but let out a cold, sharp laugh. Oh? Then please tell me, Miss Alara Miller, what is my name? Alara froze. The name she had called 1,000 times, Raiden, was now a cold, gaping void in her memory. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Despair flooded her eyes, and she finally shattered. I'm sorry, Honey, don't go. You can't leave me. We've been together for so many years. You can't just abandon your Alara. I didn't bother to reply. I turned and walked away. The contract was completely fulfilled. My time here was almost over. But before I left, there were a few final adjustments. After all, some pests have a habit of gnawing away at other people's miracles, only to walk away unscathed. Pests like the homewrecker, who destroyed Alara's parents' marriage, and pests like the one who repeated history, setting his sights on Alara and ensuring the destruction of the miracle I held in my hands. This world is full of light and shadow, and it's not always easy to draw a clear line between right and wrong. But luckily for me, I have my own standards. Epilogue: A Chef's True Purpose. Walking under the deep, setting sun, my form began to blur, becoming translucent. It hardly mattered. No one could see me anyway. Did you hear? Something massive happened at Terra Verde Food Consultancy. The managing director was having a prolonged affair with her apprentice, Jude. Her husband found out. The guy was a real genius, and he collected unassailable evidence showing this Jude kid was a total player, running simultaneous cons on multiple married women in the firms. So, the husband sent the evidence to all the other aggrieved spouses. They all showed up at the firm together, and, well, you can imagine the chaos. A bunch of people were detained. I heard the apprentice might be facing jail time. Good. Serves him right for trying to take shortcuts and ruining lives. It makes me sick how trash like that always seems to get away with it. Tell me about it. The young professionals chatting nearby had a satisfying sense of justice. I smiled to myself. The chaos involving Jude was large enough to generate lasting industry gossip. As for Alara, she had completely lost her grip on reality in the hospital, alternating between bouts of violent fury and weeping, screaming things like, Raiden, you are real. Don't abandon me. I was only lost for a moment, blinded by greed. You promised you'd be my miracle forever. Her friends who had encouraged her down this path, her colleagues who had silently cheered on her betrayal, they were now plagued by mysterious, low-level life disasters, living in a state of perpetual mild misfortune. No one would ever connect these private tragedies to the chef who disappeared. In a world drowning in self-interest, everyone is too busy to care about the quiet suffering of strangers. For me, it was as simple as tweaking a few threads of fate. A corrupted soul is as light as a feather. Its loss is insignificant. So, you really are the miracle in my life. Of course, my dear. I came here just for you, still such a smooth talker after all these years. But really, sometimes I have dreams about what my life would have been like without you. A simple life is the best life. We were never rich, but having you by my side, someone who knows and cares for me, has been more than enough. I continued on my way, passing an old couple. The old man was gently pushing a wheelchair, and his wife, a graceful woman with a full head of white hair, sat in it. They were enjoying the last warmth of the sun together. Seeing them, I smiled. Not every petitioner was like Alara, consumed by insatiable desire even after receiving a miracle. This was good. While I feed on the despair of a soul collapsing under the weight of its own fall from grace, I find an equal, subtle nourishment in the profound contentment and gratitude of a life well lived. A life I witness in its final moments, knowing the alternate, darker path it would have taken without my intervention. I am a demon. I honor my contracts. My word is my bond. Because no matter which path the contractor chooses, for me, it is always a win-win. Just then, I heard another clear, childish prayer carried on the wind. Dear God, can you please answer my prayer? A faint smile touched my lips, and I replied in the quiet of my mind, Your soul is pure. I can answer your plea. A new story was beginning. I sincerely hoped this one would have a happy ending, end